We are 1 week out from this election, you guys. And Amy Coney Barrett just replaced Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court. I know you guys are all with me there. So tonight, we knew that we needed someone who could come on and meet us where we are and help us get through this final stretch together. Our guest tonight is someone who kept his cool, managed to keep calm, and meanwhile really charm us all along the way, as his life got completely turned upside down in the last 18 months or so, when his husband decided to run for president of the United States. We have invited Chasten, the one and only, to join us here tonight. Hello.
Hi, Katie.
Thank you for being here. And no pressure, but we are counting on you to let us keep calm, focused, and just like keep us loving life just a little bit as we push through here.
Sure, no pressure. Let's do it.
I mean,
all right? You feeling okay?
Hold on. Like I said, yeah, I'm gonna be okay.
I feel super bougie tonight. I'm drinking this very local. I guess it's sort of like a port. It's like a Pinot Noir.
Ooh.
Cherry brandy. I know, right? I'm in Traverse City, Michigan, cherry capital of the world.
Oh, nice.
But I also feel like it's like a kitty glass. Yeah.
It suits you, and I sincerely mean that as a compliment.
One pinky up. Let's save democracy.
Okay. I'm so here for this. Okay, this is already going exactly as I planned. All right. So Chasten, I have a question for you. There's something that I just love about how you are talking about this new book you have out.
Yeah, I'm not being subtle about it at all. It's right.
No, oh, hello, book.
Oh, is that my book? I'm so sorry.
Oops. Okay, but seriously, I really want to ask you that. So you have said that in politics, you're not supposed to be vulnerable. Yeah. That people who, like political people, actually say like vulnerability, that is a weakness. But that you have found, and your inspiration for writing was that you have found that actually when you talk about hard things in your life, it makes people feel less alone. It brings them closer. It ultimately, you have found it to be a strength, it seems like. And this was just, I was so happy to hear these things, because this is something we talk about a whole lot here at White and Blue. We talk about the importance of finding our voices and actually leading with vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so this, I just got to ask, why is this so unusual in politics, and how do we break the system?
I don't know. And I'm like a political newbie. I didn't really care about politics much until I met Pete. And then obviously life changed dramatically, like thrown into the arena, the most cutthroat political game there is, running for president. I'm looking around wondering, like, how do people see themselves reflected in this process? Because I grew up, a closeted gay kid in Northern Michigan, very conservative family. My mom's been battling cancer for the last 13 years. I was a first generation college student, and I always wondered, like, why is it so hard to go to college, to afford college? So all of these things in my life are deeply personal, right? The health of your mother, feeling like an outsider, like you don't belong in your own country, not feeling like you can climb out of poverty, or my family was lower middle class, but that the American dream, the idea of going to college for many people is unattainable and unaffordable. That's so personal.
Yeah.
That's personal in all of our lives. And yet I go into politics and people are like, don't talk about that stuff. Like, why? Because when people are looking at the people out there on the ballot, on the national stage, wondering, like, do they get me? Do they see me? Do they really know what it's like to sit around this dining room table as mom's talking about not being able to afford her chemotherapy, talking about Amy Coney Barrett winking at the conservative branch of the court? Like, maybe we won't strip away gay marriage tomorrow, but we'll definitely start hearing cases where we'll just slowly pick away at people's rights. I mean, your lives are determined by politicians. And politics at its core is deeply personal. It decides whether or not our lives get better or worse. And so I just decided, when I'm writing a book, I'm going to throw it all out there, because people deserve to know, one, who I really am and what I believe, but they should be able to see themselves in you.
I mean, I actually think the lack of this approach in politics contributes to the total disconnection people feel with the process,
Yeah.
which leads then to a sense of why engage? Why does it matter? What does it have to do with me anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it does take courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
There's no question, but I think that people recognize that when they see our leaders being vulnerable, they see something in themselves, and it gives us more courage too.
Right.
You know,
the thing about all of the issues that we're told not to talk about, right? Like for me, when I opened up about sexual assault on the campaign trail, I realized how many people had also experienced that. And so they would say, thank you for talking about that, because I never felt, okay, but that is, you are made to feel like it's just you and it's your fault and you are weaker and you are less than. But then you start talking about it and you realize what an impact that has for other people. That's why the Me Too movement was so powerful, because people were literally saying, oh my God, me too.
Yes, exactly. And creating, instead of this sense of disconnection that I think actually the president does try to create, and so many others who refuse to stand up to him, this disconnection and so disengagement among us, what you're talking about instead creates connection and community.
Right.
And you know, people, you have my back, so I can put myself out there more and more people can come along and together. I think it's so powerful. Thank you for, you know, leading in that way. Okay. All right. So it's funny here on the Red Wine and Blue team, we actually have a lot of us, including myself, who have a background from childhood or maybe a little bit into adulthood in community theater.
Oh,
okay. You were a drama teacher.
Obviously.
Before this life. I mean, not so long ago that you're leading now. And I also love that you were once a barista at Starbucks. Oh. And I was just thinking the other day, what I really want to ask you is that which has prepared you better for the life changes you've had in the last 18 months? Customer service at Starbucks, or, I mean, come on, putting on a show, teaching.
Being a barista at Starbucks prepared me to be a middle school teacher, which definitely prepared me to be in politics on the national stage.
Okay, say more.
Well, I learned to deal with a lot of difficult people. I learned how to work quickly. You know, I learned a lot of skills in customer service and pleasing people and doing a good job. And I mean, I was teaching theater at the time. I just didn't have health insurance, so I was supplementing it with a part-time job at Starbucks. But
which so many people do. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think what I wrote in the book was like most people that I worked with at Starbucks at least had a bachelor's degree, somewhere in grad school, and some were getting a PhD. But this was pre-Obamacare. So if you work 24 hours at Starbucks, you could get healthcare. And, you know, one of the hardest parts about teaching, I'm sure there are a lot of parents on the call, is parents. And there were some parents who very much reminded me of the people that I dealt with at Starbucks. Like, they're always right. They'll get what they want.
Yes.
You will always be wrong. And it's easier to just, you know, try to make it better than to, you know, defend yourself. But I talk about Starbucks a lot on the campaign trail in the book here. But like, if you go to Starbucks, don't be a jerk. Like, my biggest, if I could tell anyone anything about Starbucks, like, you are making terrible money. And there's something about Starbucks that just makes people feel so entitled. And they always want a new drink. That was the biggest thing. I think that made the book. Like, they always want a new drink. Like, there's foam on here. Make a whole new latte.
Really?
Be kind to your barista. And I never did this. But, you know, your barista also has the ability to push the decaf button instead of the regular button.
Ooh.
So,
I mean, that's a lot of power over your whole day.
A lot of power. So maybe don't like berate your barista when they're pushing the buttons.
God, what insight into humanity. I mean,
now available where books are sold.
So what was that like, Chasten, though, to go then? So barista, the drama and humanities teacher, and then joining Pete on the campaign trail. He announces he's going to run for, you know, why not, President of the United States. And you left your teaching job at that point to join him on the trail full time. I mean, I just like the whiplash. I can't even imagine. And the whiplash of this total change in your life and the prospect of perhaps even becoming the first husband.
Yeah, I was so naive because I had no idea what to expect. And I was like, oh, sure, go for it. You know, why not? I love you. I believe in you. You're very talented. I had no idea that, like, your anonymity would go away, you'd get doxxed, people would send like, death threats to your, like the world of running for president. I just had no idea what to expect. And I think, not to like toot my own horn, but I think I was okay out there, that I went out there and I was like, I'm just going to be me. And then for the first couple of months, I felt so intimidated by the entire process. I felt like an imposter. I did not feel like I belonged in that circle because of what we talked about, because you shouldn't talk about personal things. You should be, a scholar and, like well off and well educated. And, Michelle Obama, the intimidating thing for me was like, Michelle Obama was a very strong, independent, educated, accomplished woman. Like,
we're all intimidated, obsessed, in love with Michelle Obama.
I'm 30. I just got out of grad school. I just started teaching. I felt like I was, starting on this path. And then things changed rapidly. But then the more I stopped worrying about what other people thought and like how to be a potential first gentleman, and the more I just opened up about myself, the better I felt. And I think the more successful I was, because, my mantra was like, at the end of the day, if people hate me, then at least they hate me. And if they love me, then I want them to love the real me.
Yes.
And why it's so exhausting already, like why put yourself through the exhaustion of pretending to be somebody else, especially when it came to being gay. Like I told the team, like, I'm not dressing differently. I'm not talking differently. I'm not going to police my gayness, my identity. I will not force myself and my husband into like a version of the most palatable gay couple for America. I just refuse to do it. And they were chill about it, like, yeah, let's do this. Let's just go out there and be ourselves and see how that goes.
So good. I mean, and such good advice, for how to navigate new, unfamiliar territory. You know, I mean, you're just proof of that. Okay, I'm excited to bring on a couple amazing women to ask you questions and expand the conversation here. So I am going to bring on Maya Guy, who is truly a co-conspirator of mine in this wine-fueled rebellion. Maya Guy leads our sister Facebook group that also has like 200,000 women in it. It's called Suburban Women for Kamala Harris. Right. And so Maya's a mom who lives in Virginia. And so we're conspiring the wine field rebellion together, like day to day. And so I had to have Maya on to ask you a question. Maya, it is all you, go.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be able to meet you. I love Starbucks too.
And you're always nice, right? You're always nice.
Super nice. When they make a mistake, I'm like, you can just make it over while I sip on this one. I'll wait for the whole line to be done. I am not mean. But I wanted to ask you, when you were on the campaign trail with your husband, I'm sure you got to meet a lot of amazing women. And I'm wanting to know what you think that we're bringing to the table this election and how we're changing it. Because I feel like we're changing a little bit the dynamics of politics in the United States. So I wanted to know what you thought about that.
One of the things I'm really tired of in this country is toxic masculinity. And it just permeates so many spaces and cultures where, especially in politics, you are made to feel like if you are not like a straight white male Christian Republican, then you do not belong. And maybe it's just because I'm gay, but like I also just had a lot of female friends growing up who like always felt an affinity towards my female counterparts. But I met so many badass women on the campaign trail who were not only running for office, but changing their communities. I remember one mom in Iowa rural Iowa, who was running an after-school theater program because there was no arts programming in the school district. But what she was also doing was essentially running like an underground LGBTQ organization because there was no safe space for those kids to go. And, it's women like her who are saving lives, who are stepping up and saying, there is something missing in my community and I'm going to change it. I'm going to protect these children. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that. I really appreciated meeting people who are just getting it done. And oftentimes, some of the things that I'm frustrated with as a gay man, in spaces where I am made to feel like I don't belong, my voice doesn't matter. It is often, women who are also right there with us. Speaking up and making space and saying like, this is not how it has to be. And it doesn't need to be this any longer.
I mean, I think that there are so many women, Maya and I talk about this all the time. It's the constant conversation in our groups that all these women who are never engaged in politics before 2016, who have stepped up and found their voices, whether it's running for office, getting involved in the ways that you're talking about in our communities.
Yeah.
And we are seeing, there's this massive gender gap. And just in the last few years, it's always been a little one, but it's huge now.
Yeah.
Of women. And it's like, as we get more engaged, as we get more involved and informed, we become a force together, and I'm so excited about what the result of that could be. And, hearing you reflect on seeing that, on the campaign trail, being out there.
And you never want to like profile when you're knocking on doors, right? But sometimes you're like, can I just speak to your wife?
Yes.
When that wife comes to the door, they're the ones registered. They're the ones that you want to talk to. And you've been, this has happened to me a couple of times up here in Northern Michigan, knocking on doors where like the husband is so put off by you and your presence, and they very much make it known like who they're voting for. And sometimes it's like, if I could just speak to your wife. When they come to the door, it's like, isn't that exhausting? Like, isn't that, just, I'm so sorry. Like, sometimes I want to be like, you want to get a drink? Like, you want to get a coffee? Like, no pandemic, but like, I'm so sorry. Like, thank you for voting Democrat, but like, whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that women are showing up and rejecting this president and his hatred. And, maybe their husbands are still clinging on to some ideals, but women are going to change this election.
Yeah, men might be comfortable with this idea of the ladies being these housewives from the 1950s, but I don't think we are. So, all right. I thank you, Maya.
Thank you, Maya.
Housewife correspondent. Thank you for being there.
I love
Okay, so now I am going to bring on someone very famous, probably the only person participating in this call tonight that is more famous than you, Chasten, because she was featured this week in The Atlantic as a woman leading on the west side of Cleveland here, the Wine Mom Rebellion, I believe was the title of the article. And she's on the team here at Red Wine and Blue. So, she's in on the rebellion.
All right. Okay.
I also gave her a shout out on the Daily because her group has an amazing name. It's GRR. So Susan Shaw, very famous of GRR.
Excuse me while I rebel. Just a minute.
Cheers, Susan.
Yes. By the way, tell Pete I'm a native Hoosier. Don't hold that against me because sometimes bad things come from Indiana, like Mike Pence and Dan Quayle. But great things come out of Indiana, like Pete sometimes.
We tried to send you all something better from South Bend, and I'm very sorry.
I think that was a good thing. Thank you for that.
Sorry about our neighbor.
Oh my gosh. My question for you is, do you watch Pete when he's on Fox News? And if you do, are you losing your mind at the shutdowns that he delivers? Like, are you screaming from the kitchen? Like, what happens in your house when that is taking place?
Depends. I think most of his have been remote. It depends on what time the hits are. I usually just wait for the clip because I do not want to watch that channel longer than I need to. He's so good.
He's so good.
Something that I'm hearing people are like, where was this Pete during the primary? Like, that is the same Pete. I'm so glad you're now discovering him. That is the man that I love and admire and cheerlead every day. And this is the thing that astounds me with his, political acumen and ability just to like go on there and be like, okay, so that's a lie. And here are the receipts. He's just so unflappable. I love it.
And calling them out on values.
Yeah.
I remember those with Mike Pence from early in the campaign, and it was just like he's delivering it on Fox News.
Yeah. He's like he could be a good middle school teacher. Like, instead of a lie, and let's unpack that lie, right? The way he does it, it's like that's shade. He knows how to shade.
Total shade.
Yeah, no question. Okay, awesome. All right, Susan, I loved that question. Thank you for sharing some of your spotlight, your limelight.
Oh yes,
beaming.
All right, and keep at it with that the Wine Mom Rebellion. Okay, Chasten, I actually want to get back to something that you said before, because something else we talk a lot about here is that there's no question when you put yourself out there, you lead with vulnerability. That is how you bring people closer. That is how we create community in this sense of connection and combat all of everything we're up against, honestly. However, it does not mean that it doesn't come without a few slings and arrows. You know, I mean, that it is hard to put yourself out there. And I think hearing from you as someone who especially is newer to this, like so many women are who have become engaged in politics, but frankly don't even consider themselves political activists. You know, they're just trying to do their part. They're trying to be moms who can help make a difference and turn this car around, right? How did you figure out like when to respond and when to ignore, when to engage and when to just, you know, how do you do it?
The first thing is always to determine if you're safe. You know, there were many people on the campaign trail who would show up to heckle or protest. And, you know, those kinds of conversations are never worth it. You know, they're not there to have a conversation. And so protect yourself first, right? You know, if it's really important to engage with people who may have otherwise not heard our side, our story. That, for example, why Pete goes on Fox News, right? I don't think they're always acting in good faith on Fox News, but some people who tune in are. And if they don't hear our story and they don't hear our side, then they've never been presented a different way of thinking and an opportunity. That's why it's so important we reach out to our neighbors and our family, friends, and, you know, people in our social groups and say, like, this is what's at stake for me. This is what matters. This is what we stand to gain. This is what we stand to lose. But we can only have those conversations if we are safe. And if we really think that they are worthy of having. So, you know, you have a family member who's not really politically active and they say they like Trump, but like might be receptive to having a conversation. Now, the guy at the grocery store who's wearing like the locker up t-shirt and the MAGA hat probably isn't ready to have a conversation with a stranger in the checkout aisle, right? But it's also important that we speak up for other people who do not have a voice. Right. So when we're having political conversations with folks and, you know, just because you identify maybe as a straight cisgender white woman doesn't mean that you can't speak to issues that affect people of color, affect queer people, affect people in communities that you do not belong to, because sometimes those people have yet to be given a voice or the confidence to come out and talk about it. Like when I'm knocking on doors, I have the freedom to say, well, I'm a gay man and here's what I stand to lose. And here, just as a person who lives in this country, as a queer American, I'm really terrified about what I stand to lose. But not everyone gets that voice. Not everyone's there yet. And I only have those conversations if, one, I feel safe, and two, if I feel like they're worth it. And, you know, have a good temperature check on these things.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, having those conversations, and so our whole thing with Red, White, and Blue is relational organizing. It's based on those relationships, right? Like, who are the people in your networks? We know that it's so much more effective in politics, actually, to reach out to people that you know, friends and family, someone maybe you just know from the gym, than it is to hear from a stranger.
Right.
I mean, not that I miss the gym. My basement's okay. COVID. Anyway, not to be a downer there for a minute. I mean, but what I'm actually trying to say is that willingness to put yourself out there, have those conversations with the people you know, there's so much power in it. And so I just have to plug, I don't know if we have something to put on the screen, but like join us every single day. We are having, I hope you'll enjoy this. We have tequila and texting. We have
I would get 2 texts done. Well, I'm done.
Okay, Chasten, you're not supposed to have that much tequila during the tequila and texting. It's really just like the spirit of tequila, okay? Like text with gusto. And so what you do is you download the Outvote app and you enter our campaign code 862675 and you're in with Red, White, and Blue. And you've got all of our really fun content and messages to send to your friends that are easier ways of starting a conversation. And you come and join one of our tequila and texting, but we'll keep Chasten off the party because he'll just be like falling out of his chair apparently. And we'll all talk about how do we do this? How do we get up the courage to reach out to our friends to make sure that they've got all the information they need. We've got, we can send them to vinoyourvote.com, which is where they can research their ballot. We have got their backs. Like we are here to help you be that friend who isn't like that annoying person in their life with information, but just, helpful in their life. But even that takes a little courage.
It's okay to be annoying. There's 1 week left. And
hey, thank you.
You should talk to people more about voting than what their plans are for Thanksgiving. Like, we're trying to save democracy. It's okay to text 5 times, 8 times, 10 times. Like, if you're selling your doTERRAs or you're trying to get someone to sign up for, something else, pester them like crazy about voting too. It's okay to annoy, like, what are you going to say in 2 weeks when we've won this thing? Like, oh, by the way, sorry, I texted you so much. No, you're gonna be like, you're welcome that I texted you so much.
Yes, you are going to say you're welcome. Let's all be able to say you're welcome. Let's leave it all on the table. Okay. All right. So now do I have time for this? Okay. A tiny little, all right. 2 little rapid fires, and then I'm going to bring on the ladies to wrap us up. Okay. A piece of advice you would give your teenage self, Chasten.
Oh, you are so worthy of love. You are so worthy of it, and be patient with that.
Yes. Okay, your favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh, you seen that meme where the woman's like, I'm just going to eat a bunch of breads and desserts and get all fat and sassy? That's me. Ben and Jerry's, Netflix, sugar. I'm like a sugar fan. I got a sweet tooth. Guilty pleasures, definitely cuddling up with the dogs. I just finished Emily in Paris last night.
Oh, I might have finished that like a couple weeks ago. So. What took you so long?
Sorry. It's a rapid fire. I'm sorry.
All right. No, our final rapid fire is actually going to go to one of the ladies. So let's bring on Julie, Amy, Susan, Maya. Are you guys all here with us?
Hey.
There they all are.
Hi.
Oh,
hello. We have Julie here, who is our organizing director for Red, Wine, and Blue, a mom down in Southern Ohio who was never involved in politics before 2016, and now she's killing it. You already met Maya, our co-conspirator in the wine-fueled rebellion, and Susan, who's just too famous for words, and then Amy Mercer here. I have to say, she might be your #1 fan in the whole universe, Chasten.
I'm a Hoosier too, Chasten. I grew up raised by super liberals in very red rural Indiana. So I put my time in before I was even 20 years old, knocking on doors.
Nice to meet you.
I just want to say that when we said that you were coming on, Susan and Amy immediately were like, we're doing the show. We're doing the show.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm flattered. Thank you.
But
my tires might have been slashed tomorrow if this doesn't happen. Okay, just kidding. Okay, Amy, you get to wrap up this interview with Chasten Buttigieg with your final all-important question.
Cool. Chasten, they left me with the most critical, important question. Okay. And it is, are you red or are you white? It's a hard one.
I'm what's that quote from Schitt's Creek? Like, I'm more into the wine and not the label. Yeah. I've got rosé in the fridge, got reds on the rack. If you're pouring, I'm drinking. So.
Perfect.
Okay, there couldn't have been a better answer than that. I think we have to wrap right there.
That was very unifying. I needed that.
Yes. That was you.
It was.
Isn't that what it's about? Building belonging.
Yes. All right. Chasten, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
It was so much fun. And thank you for helping us keep calm and carry on for the next 1 week. Thank you.
Cheers.
That was pretty awesome.
Oh okay. My God, he's so funny.
I have to say,
cancer.
And Schitt's Creek.
And Schitt's Creek. That's what I was going to say.
We like die for Schitt's Creek.
I know.
We share more memes and GIFs or whatever you want to call them from Schitt's Creek than anything else. So the fact that #1, I loved that he was actually, of all the questions Katie threw at him, the one that stumped him and he had to really contemplate was the wine.
You were just kidding about the most important important question.
And then the Schitt's Creek thrown in was just the icing on the cake. So
I know.
we all kind of introduced ourselves already, so I don't know if we really have to go through all of that again. But so what did you guys think? What did you all enjoy the interview? Like what was your favorite part? What did you like about it?
He's so perfect. He's just like his Twitter feed. He's just so soothing and down to earth and makes you feel okay. You know, like every time. He's awesome.
Yeah.
When he said, "Can I just speak to your wife?"
I
mean, that sums it up, man. Doesn't it? Like that is exactly it. And all of us who've been those of us who've canvassed, it's the same thing when the guy answers the door, you're like, ugh.
I know.
And when he said that, I'm like, oh my God, he's speaking to me.
I know. And I thought of so many friends when he said that too, Julie. How many friends do we have that live in split households? And it's true. When he said, when they finally come to the door, he just wants to say, oh, aren't you exhausted? Like, it would be hard.
I feel for those. I'm glad I'm not them. I mean, my husband isn't perfect, but he's not their husband. It's not funny, but it is a little bit.
Well, I tell you the thing I liked at the beginning. He was talking about how when you're on the campaign trail and you're not supposed to talk about your personal stuff, and I thought to myself, that is exactly what's wrong with politics, because like the candidates that I relate to are the ones who are sharing their stories and their vulnerabilities. I mean, didn't you guys, that's kind of what Red Wine and Blue is all about, is us sharing our personal stories and relating to each other. So I don't know. What did you guys think about that? I kind of felt like, well, maybe that's why there's been so many men in politics, and that was the way it was supposed to be. And
I was just going to say that. I think that even with the women politicians who I've enjoyed, who I can identify with, and who I felt like struck a human chord that was missing, well, they were females. We relate differently. We think differently. We process differently. We problem solve differently, and I think that is one of the reasons why people probably get intimidated by women who are in politics, because they can bridge so many gaps. Do you know what I'm saying? And he was so incredibly relatable, and that's the type of politician that we're looking for, is that someone who gets it, right? And even if you don't have that life experience anymore, you were there and you get it, and then you can help us get over it, which is what we're obviously missing now.
Right. And women lead differently too, right? Like that's something else I'm really looking forward to, all these women heading into politics, is they lead differently, and I'm ready for that as well.
Didn't I just hear a statistic that like the countries that were led by women during COVID have fared the best?
Yeah. The New Zealand, look at all the female presidents and prime ministers, and that stat of where they are on the COVID scale.
But you know what else that means for our country, which we won't see for another few years, but with women who are stepping up, just, regular women all throughout the country who are becoming interested in politics and who are having different conversations at the dinner table or on the way to the soccer game, in the car with their kids. My husband always says that women, we pass down our culture of the family. And I never really understood that until just recently, but it is actually true. So we are raising now children who are more socially conscious, but also politically conscious. And I'm hoping that we start to see young people vote more. We'll have to wait and see what the data shows, but it's already showing that young people are voting. But I think we're going to get much better voters, much better politicians, and just better people with this awakening of some of the women who have never really thought about politics and how it affects us. And now we're teaching our children how it affects us, at a bigger scale as just in our family.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, as much as some people hate social media, I do feel like the kids of like my kids, I have high school and college age kids, and they have so many issues they're facing, and that they know that, like, they have to deal with the, active shooter drills at their high school, and they know climate change is coming, and they have no control over it because they can't vote. They can't do any of that stuff, but they see it coming. And then they're on social media talking to each other and, building a community around those issues. And I think that that's pushing them more than our generation, maybe, because we just didn't have that.
They're facing things like, I mean, look at how much they have to spend on an education just compared to us, just one generation later. I mean, they have their college tuition bills and their college debt is so high, and then they have their college degree and then they get a job that doesn't pay the same that we got with our college degree. So it's like they're getting hit from all sides. So they just have to care a lot more. I mean, my kids and their friends are so much better informed than I was when I was 18. I was an idiot, until I was basically 30. So
I feel like I might have been an idiot until like 4 years ago, to be totally honest. I mean, I always voted and I always thought I knew what was going on. And after the last 4 years, I'm like, oh yeah, I was really not as aware as, as I needed to be. But that's okay. Like, we're all at that place, right? We're all finding our way. We're all coming to these realizations. And honestly, I think that's actually, I was going to say, that's another thing that he said about being his authentic self on the campaign trail is like, I think a lot of politicians and I think a lot of women do that. Like, we try to fit into our community and do what you're supposed to do. And so I kind of liked when he was like, once he started campaigning, he wasn't just trying to be that character of a politician who just gives like, he's like, I'm going to be my authentic self.
Yeah.
I hope that's where we're going with politics.
He said, I told them I'm not going to police my gayness. That just like really hit me. I'm like, that you can't be more authentic than that. And, you can't, to be an authentic politician that we relate to, you can't do those things. You got to be yourself, and you've got to be able to tell your story and tell where you came from. And I think part of the reason why Biden is so good at that, because we do know his story. We know about his grief and his loss and family medical history and his medical problem. I mean, all of it. It's just, and I think that's why he's so much more relatable. Like Chasten said, he's not tamping down who he is. That's who he is.
And everybody wants to see that. That's not a partisan thing. Every American wants to see a real human being in their elected, authentic human being in their elected officials, because they want to be able to relate to them. We all do.
And don't you think that's why we all jumped on his Twitter feed and we're following him incessantly? Because he was authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Pete is a great guy, amazing, super smart. I love the way he talks on Fox. I mean, I love the way he just talks in interviews, but obviously Fox News is really fun to watch.
Yeah.
But I actually would follow Chasten more. It's just so relatable,
Yeah.
I just want to hang out with them.
I know.
Don't you just want to hang out with them for like an hour?
Bring him back.
I hope he's still back there watching this. Maybe he won't come back and talk to us, once the craziness of this is all over. I think the other thing that he said that I wrote down that I kind of liked was that he was talking about how talking about like relating to being yourself and relating, and how it's about making the connections by sharing your stories. And when he said the Me Too movement was like the first time that people were kind of hearing what was an issue like that, and then being like, oh, other people have gone through this just like I have. And I never thought of it that way, but like, he's right. That's one of the first things where people were all saying, happened to me, and relating to that. And I don't think that's the power behind some of that stuff. Yeah. All right. So Maya, I have a question, because we've all discovered at Red, Wine, and Blue that we're huge music. I think Katie mentioned we're all musical theater geek people. Did you do theater? Are you part of or are we leaving you out of that?
I didn't do musical theater, but I did do the jazz ensemble. The choir and the chorus. I didn't do the acting part, but I thought I could sing. I even had signed a contract to record an album.
Oh my God.
Didn't work. So yeah, other things happened in life.
Wow. That counts. You're a performing artist. So I think there's something in the water with that. I thought that was funny when he was talking about that. And I also did like his story about meeting like moms on the campaign trail, or women who were just doing like his underground, like the theater group that was like an underground LGBT group. And I do feel that that's another thing women do so well, is we step into these areas where things are needed to be done and we just do them.
We're so keen on not just taking care of our kids, but our friends' kids too. I think that that's special about women and needed in leadership as well. You know, like policymakers need to think about all people that are affected by stuff. And I think women just naturally do that.
100%. And I know that a lot of us after 2016, that's exactly kind of what, we stepped out into our communities. I mean, Susan just got put in a whole article in the Atlantic about all of the work that she's doing with her group that formed, and I think that's really what we want all the women through Red, White, and Blue to know, is that you can step out of your comfort zone. There is a whole community of women here who are doing that and trying to make a difference. So we hope that you will kind of check out the whole page. If you want to download our app and become part of texting your friends, like not Pete, I just called him Pete. Like Chasten said, we're going to pester them because we're saving democracy. It's okay to pester people. And I hope, Chasten, if you're still listening, I am totally using that line at every texting party we have from now until Election Day. I'm going to say that Chasten said that it's okay right now to pester your friends.
I was fist pumping when he was saying that, like, that's, you preach it. That's right. Tell him. Pester.
And so please check out our page, because we have these tequila and texting parties in the evening time, and we do a coffee break during the day on a couple of days a week. We're actually going to do a mimosa and messaging this weekend again. But it's always fun. We send messages, but you get to meet a lot of other really great women, really from all over the country. So it's always like a fun time and a fun place to meet people. So we kind of hope that you guys will come. Maya?
I had the coffee break this morning. I didn't realize that you'd be able to see me. So I had to hit stop because I was still in bed. I'll do it again, presentable next time you do it. I wasn't ready for it.
The whole point of coffee break is come as you are.
No. Come in pajamas and workout clothes. As a matter of fact, today there was another woman on the coffee break still in bed, and she just turned her video off and stayed on the meeting. So do that next time. Just turn your video off.
I was horrified when I saw strangers, and I was like, oh, they can see me. And
oh my gosh. Well, before we end, I still love the story, so I'm telling you. So from our coffee break this morning, we had women like Colorado, we had a bunch of women in Ohio, obviously all over the country. So it was great to talk to everybody. We had a couple on who were 83 years old. They live up near Cleveland, and I could not have been more proud of them. They came on and they stayed for like an hour. Not only did they see us or hear us on a podcast, because we were on the daily podcast on Monday. Check it out if you haven't. They heard about us on a podcast, which I don't know a lot of 83-year-olds who listen to podcasts. No. They joined a Zoom meeting and they were perfect. They didn't mute themselves. They were perfect. And then they downloaded Outvote. So if these 83-year-old couple can do this and get involved, you people can download Outvote.
They did not give up until they texted. They did not give up.
They texted, they did. I know. And he was like, I'm going to share that daily podcast with all of my friends. I mean, I'm like, you go. It was amazing.
They were cute.
I'm just saying that if this wonderful couple who are in their 80s can handle all of that, you can handle it. We're gonna pester our friends to save democracy. No regrets.
Yes.
Right.
7 days.
All right, ladies. Thank you all for joining us. It was great to see. Well, I see Amy and Susan all the time. Maya, it was great to see you again.
Yes.
Next time, turn on your camera when you come over. Okay. Cheers, ladies.
Cheers.